second year computer science major here at UC Santa Cruz. I'm also minoring in sustainability studies, which is one of my inspirations for organizing with Fossil Free UC.
Hi everybody, my name is Cormac. I'm a second year ecology and evolutionary biology student. I'm originally from Wyoming, which is a state funded and fueled by the extraction of fossil fuels, so it's super refreshing to be in Santa Cruz, especially in spaces like these. So I'd like to thank TJ for hosting this and making this event happen. All of you who are here to educate yourselves on sustainability, and the speakers to come.
All right, so we are representatives from Fossil Free UC Santa Cruz, which is one chapter of a UC-wide campaign dedicated to climate justice and advocating that the UC system divest its money out of the fossil fuel industry. So the UC currently invests $3 billion in the fossil fuel industry, and this industry has been cited as one of the lead contributors to climate change. The UC currently views its investments, or its returns on its investments, as simply financial capital, but we view its returns as the social and environmental impacts that result from climate change. So here we have a few examples. This top image shows a wildfire that is currently burning in Alberta, Canada. It actually forced an entire city of over 50,000 people to relocate and displace them from their homes, and it's actually still going on right now. And it's been said that the fire started because it has been like the driest and hottest it's ever been up there. On the right, there is an image of the tropical cyclone Winston that happened in this past February. It was cited as the strongest cyclone ever recorded in history, and in the southern hemisphere, and that caused widespread devastation in Fiji. The bottom image shows the extremely high temperatures in the Arctic, and that has contributed to record low sea ice. Also recently, 5 Solomon Islands have been completely covered by the sea, forcing families that have been living there for 5 generations to relocate to a new place. So all these examples are just a small fraction of the injustices that are resulting directly from climate change. And we believe that a sustainable institution is one that actively works to stop these injustices and not profit off of them.
So the fossil fuel divestment movement is based on the premise that we can only burn 20% of fossil fuels that have been identified by the industry. That means that 80% of fossil fuels must remain unburned if we're to stay below the 2 degrees Celsius threshold. And the numbers would be even more striking if we were talking about the 1.5 degree threshold, which is the level of temperature rise that African countries and island nations have said is all their countries can endure. That means that we can't burn more than 80% of identified fossil fuel reserves. It's the fossil fuel's stated business plan to burn all of it. The fossil fuel industry is driving the climate crisis and has made our society dependent on their product through campaign finance efforts, lobbying efforts, and also misinformation campaigns. Take Exxon, for example. It was recently discovered that Exxon was doing climate change research in the 80s, and when they found that their operations would have disastrous effects on all of the world's communities, they looked the other way. They stopped funding their climate change research program. They told shareholders that they didn't expect profits to be affected, and they spearheaded lobbying efforts to spread doubt about climate change. The political endeavors and operations of the fossil fuel industry are not sustainable in environmental terms. Furthermore, climate change and the initiatives of these companies exacerbate economic and social inequalities. Those who have done the least to cause climate change and who have the least say in how to solve climate change are the ones who will be the most impacted. Thus, The fossil fuel industry is also incompatible. They're incompatible with a sustainable future in social terms as well. So, the UC has taken institutional and individualistic approaches to solving climate change. Unfortunately, this kind of action is lost in a mess of systemic issues that are preventing a just transition to a clean energy economy. We lack the political will, not the technology. The UC going carbon neutral will prove that we do have the technology to transition to a clean energy economy. To enumerate this point, I just want to say a couple things about recent events. The most ambitious action that the US government has taken to reduce carbon emissions, the Clean Power Act, has become the most hotly contested piece of environmental regulation in history. In 2015, not a single bill that the Western States Petroleum Association opposed passed the California state legislature. And that came during a record drought, the severity of which can be attributed to climate change. The passive approach that the UC has taken to addressing climate change simply is not sufficient. If we're to stay below the 1.5 degree threshold, which is the threshold that we must stay below, the UC needs to stand with its students and make it clear that we stand for climate justice.
So it is essential that we reframe the narrative around the current energy system and the fossil fuel industry. By divesting from the top 200 fossil fuel companies, the UC would help to create a social and political capital for the passage of legislation that will actually regulate carbon emissions. This will also, in turn, inflict reputational damage on the fossil fuel industry, making their money politically toxic and unviable. Divestment will also contribute to a more widespread shift in investment norms and help to spur the necessary transition away from fossil fuels. It will take the voices of the people as well as the institutions that represent us all to actually create an atmosphere where meaningful climate action can take place. Divesting from fossil fuels would complement the carbon neutrality initiative by giving it a higher political profile and demonstrating the UC's commitment to a sustainable society.
So I'm going to briefly talk about the financial aspect of things, but as Claire talked about earlier, we don't frame our campaign around the monetary returns of climate change, right? So, but briefly, you all might be thinking like, well, what's the financial cost to the UC? Is it financially sustainable for the UC to divest from fossil fuels? There has to be a good reason that we continue to invest in the industries that are fueling climate change, right? Well, actually, fossil fuel portfolios that have been divested from fossil fuels have outperformed their undivested counterparts for the past 5 to 10 years. Additionally, and that's depicted here, but this only runs up to April 2013. If you go until now, if you look at a figure from today, the deviation is even bigger. Additionally, there's very low financial risk to divestment. The tracking error, which is like the economist's way of measuring risk, is minuscule. A new analysis, which I don't have the numbers up here, says that the tracking error is 0.76%, which is negligible. Lastly, it's actually economically unsustainable for our institution to invest in the fossil fuel industry. The industry currently is valued based on the amount of carbon that they have in the ground. We can't burn 80% of it. That means that when restrictive legislation is passed, the value of these companies is going to drop dramatically. This is called asset stranding, which is kind of like unimportant jargon. But our portfolio might take a huge blow because of that. So divestment is economically sustainable.
So we also want to talk about the fossil-free movement and emphasize that this is not just happening here, it's happening all around the globe. Entire countries and institutions and universities in other countries are demanding a fossil-free future. Here, college campuses around the US have recently been taking escalatory action having sit-ins and other direct actions all within the past month. Some universities are University of Massachusetts, Columbia, NYU, and a lot more. Here in the UC system, we have a lot of exciting things that are happening right now. UC Berkeley recently held a sit-in last week in the new Committee on Investments Chair, Regent Sherman's office. And we here at UC Santa Cruz held an action in the quarry in solidarity with UC Berkeley. And yesterday, because of the sit-in, Regent Sherman agreed to meet with UC Berkeley and discuss our campaign, so that was a super big success. And although he did not say that he wants to divest or that he agrees with divestment itself at this point, he did say that he embraces our campaign. So we're going to hold him accountable to saying that. Is there anything I left out about what's happening? Yeah, so basically we just want to emphasize that this is happening right now. And here at UC Santa Cruz, we're going to be having more actions within the next 2 weeks. We have an upcoming academic senate meeting next week where we will be introducing our resolution to get passed, where the faculty will vote on it. And also on a side note, I just remembered that UC San Diego just passed their resolution yesterday, so that's super exciting. So briefly, we want to show you a quick video from Fossil Free Stanford. They had a sit-in about a month ago or so, and yeah, it's just a great example of the divestment movement in action.
At Stanford, students are camped outside the university president's office right now to pressure the school to divest its holdings in fossil fuel companies.
The students have now called for Stanford to divest from all fossil fuels, including oil and gas.
It is time for you to lead with us. It is time for you to step up and join the call for a just transition away from fossil fuels and towards reinvestment in community-led solutions. Students have spoken. This is not a controversial issue among the student population, and it shouldn't be one of our administration either.
It's not ignored for the movement. It's not ignored when we set up camps 100 strong. I grew up in a small town in Central Alaska.
I'm from Cormac, Oregon. My family's from Martinez.
I was born in Colombia. They know all too well that their health and wellness is linked to the well-being of our environment.
I want to be proud of the university that I attend.
We alumni, look at what we can do to help move Stanford to its best.
We represent 45,000 workers, and we're here to stand by your side and support the future of college.
It's setting up for the future. Communities are what exploited by the fossil industry. We're devastated by climate change. It's a violation of the fundamental standards, and we will violate that standard.
We are not going away.
We're seniors, and we're launching a campaign
To get the Awesome. Yeah, so that's just a great example of what's going on.
Super epic. So this is our ask: stop, drop, and roll. First one is stop investing in the top 200 fossil fuel companies based on the amount of carbon that they have in reserve. Drop all current investments in those companies over a 5-year period, and roll out new investments in the realm of climate solutions to holistically address the threats and opportunities presented by climate change. Divestment isn't just about calling out the bad and saying that we're discontent with the way things are, but it's also the reinvestment component is telling the story of how things should be, can be, and will be.
So in conclusion, we want to emphasize that the UC has divested in the past from harmful sectors. On this list, there's gun manufacturers, tobacco, coal and tar sands, companies doing business in South Africa during apartheid, and actually many more. And the fossil fuel industry needs to be on this list.
So today we live in a world that's more interconnected than it ever has been before. People across the world are connected by the economy and the atmosphere. Investors at one side of the world can invest in injustices at another side of the world. And similarly, burning fossil fuels on one side of the world can have detrimental effects to people on another side of the world. The UC, with all of its influence and power, needs to recognize that it's connected to these larger systems. The Regents and Investment Office must stand with the rest of the UC community, represent our needs, and pull its investments from the industry that has locked us into a changed climate.
So we also want to emphasize the power of people. The more people that we have join our movement, the closer we all get to divestment and a sustainable future. So how can you join the movement? For all the students here, you can come to meetings. We have them every week. Check out our Facebook page, Fossil Free UC Santa Cruz. We have a lot of exciting events coming up within the next 2 weeks, and there's always ways to get involved. Yeah, just come out and support. Feel free to talk to us. Also, engage with your peers in conversation about fossil fuel divestment and just like spread the conversation. For all the faculty here, go to the Academic Senate meeting, vote on behalf of the resolution.
What day is that?
The 18th.
Next Wednesday, May 18th, which is, we will also be having an action coinciding with that. And yeah, basically, that's what we have to say. Thank you all so much for being here, and